Everyone's looking for the next Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning rivalry, and while I don't think that'll ever happen again to the extent that it happened that time, you could make the argument that this would be, if you have to pick two guys, this might be the two guys to predict, given that this is now the second straight year they will be in the postseason. Obviously, the two guys I'm talking about, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. This should be an awesome game. On paper, it should be an awesome game. So let's get into the previews, and first I want to talk about because we talk about Mahomes versus Josh Allen, but really it's Mahomes versus the Bills defense and the Chiefs defense versus, Josh Allen. That's obviously how it works. So first, let's start off with this chart. What you're looking at here is this is where, each team ranks on specific categories in terms of their PFF grade. Now, again, people hate PFF grades. You look at, they have Josh Allen as the number 11 quarterback this year. Obviously, part of that is because he has had some bad games this season. That's fair to say. He's had some consistency issues throughout the year, and it's not measuring how good of a quarterback you are. It's measuring how good you played this season. But also, I think it's fair to say, I'd probably have him higher than 11. But still, I think these things are still worth looking at. And the Bills' offense had some struggles early on, but has played a lot better down the stretch. They end up having the number 10 receiving core, the number 13 pass blocking unit, and the number 11 quarterback, and I think we all agree that Josh Allen is better than the 11th best quarterback. And then for the Chiefs defense, they're 8th in coverage and 20th in pass rush. So no clear advantages, I would say, too much. I mean, I think slight advantage to Buffalo in terms of these grades, but the difference is just going to be Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen should be able to play a lot better than, the Chiefs usually deal with. For the running game, the Bills actually run the football very well, according to PFF, but don't run block particularly well. So that's kind of why you have such a big disparity there. Chiefs run defense, also not the best. But again, I think that we all kind of agree the Bills will probably, if they win this game, it'll be through throwing the football. That's how they won the first two times these two teams played. Let's go back and watch the first time these two teams played, which was all the way back in week 5. So these are the numbers. And by the way, I said, let's go back and watch that game. You do not have to watch that game. I have watched it for you. That's what I do here. But these were the total numbers from that game. The Bills won pretty handedly. The kind of the biggest surprise, biggest number that jumps out at you is the yards per play, 8.1 yards per play. That's just a high number by the Bills. 5.0 isn't even horrible by Kansas City, but just it's hard to beat that kind of production from Buffalo. This was Josh Allen's stat sheet, so, his numbers very good. 315 yards on just 26 attempts, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Worth noting, he did throw an interception that was negated due to a penalty, but besides that, no interceptions. Josh Allen was also the leading rusher in this game. So again, the offense goes when Allen goes. There's no denying that. The running game itself, not too spectacular outside of when Allen himself was running the football. So that's interesting. And then also the receiving game, Dawson Knox, the leading receiver by a good measure, even though he only had 3 catches. He averaged 3.9 yards per play on those catches. So that's how he was able to rack up 117 yards. Going over here, these are where every Bills offensive player ranked in the PFF grade for this game. So not really a huge surprise, I wouldn't say, with, number 1 and number 2, Josh Allen and Dawson Knox. They had very good statistical days, also very good days by the guys who watched the tape and, entered into their own algorithm. Zach Moss also had a good day, largely through running and even through running routes as well. All the way at the bottom, even these guys that are low don't even really have particularly bad grades, but kind of the worser of the group was, some of the secondary receivers, Isaiah McKenzie and Cole Beasley, although granted, they barely had any snaps as well. So that's worth noting. It's important to look at the snap totals while looking at this because Deion Dawkins is really the only guy kind of in that bottom half that had significant playing time that, everyone else seemed to do pretty well. So meanwhile, for Kansas City, you got some ugly numbers. Let's start with the bottom because, again, they got blown out in this one. They got crushed in some really tough coverage grades right off the bat with L'Jarius Sneed and Daniel Sorensen. We'll talk about Sorensen more in a second because he had a couple of not great plays. But you have some other guys, a couple of front 7 guys as well who did not have spectacular days. Worth noting, there was no Chris Jones in this game, so him getting back makes it easier on everybody. So that could help out in that category heading into this game because, again, week 5, right? A lot has changed, but you can still learn a lot from going back and watching that game and paying attention to it. all the way at the top, you had Rashad Fenton, who had a good day. Willie Gay and Nick Bolton both had good days. So there's a couple of things of note. Like Tyrann Mathieu up there as well. Juan Thornhill is up there as well. Kind of put a pin in that. But let's get into the tape, because I think there's actually some really fascinating stuff when we talk about the numbers. So first things first, Kansas City was awful in zone coverage. I mean, when they were playing zone coverage, the Bills were just getting stuff wide open. Like, this is a pretty simple zone buster. You should expect a linebacker to read it and stay deep with Dawson Knox on this play. And look, it's going to be a play action, and you're going to see that, 254's credit there for Kansas City. He does read this play. He's getting back, and he's, doing what he can. And so, this isn't like horrible coverage by any means. This is Nick Bolton, who was one of the guys who I said graded very well. He's doing a fine job here. But the issue is when the offensive line's blocking as well as they are, you have time and you're playing this zone coverage that Kansas City isn't spectacular at, you're going to get guys open, especially when Buffalo can run these plays very well. Watch, Josh Allen makes a great throw and you pick up a big completion and gain a ton of yards right there. So again, not the worst play in the world from Kansas City, but quite frankly, it's just too easy for Buffalo, and they're able to consistently do this kind of stuff. It's just going to make things hard for Kansas City to get many stops. And then the other side of things is in man coverage, if you want to do this, like say a cover 2 man, the issue with a play like this is, okay, what if Josh Allen runs the football? Then who can go up and make a tackle? All 5 guys playing man, obviously they're focused on the guy they're supposed to cover. There's 2 safeties deep. They can come up and make a tackle, but they're further away from the play. And the other issue, the only other way you can make a play is if the defensive linemen are able to tackle Allen. So Josh Allen's going to take the snap, and they just run block for him, and he's able to rush up. And it wasn't even run blocked that particularly well, but he gets a first down pretty easily, just because if you have a quarterback who can run with the football, there's that added benefit that I think just makes things difficult for a defense. This is kind of this is the Lamar thing a little bit too, where, people talked about Lamar as he's the guy who you can't play man coverage against, but for Josh Allen, it's kind of even more extreme because he's clearly a better thrower than Lamar, so it makes it even that much more difficult. Now, the one thing they had a little bit of success with was on plays like this, where it's going to be a cover 2 zone. And basically, it's zone coverage, but at least if a cover 2, you kind of can get Buffalo to try to take some more checkdowns here. Watch how when Allen takes the snap, you are going to see that a halfback is open underneath. And this is kind of a strategy that like New England tried. Didn't work out too well for them, but they tried it in the wildcard weekend of saying, hey, get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. Like, they can be so explosive down the field. If we get the ball out of his hands, all we have to do is run up and make some tackles, and things can go wrong for Buffalo. Watch, on this play, it's just going to be a drop pass. And if you can do stuff like that, that can allow you to have success on defense. Now, again, is it a foolproof strategy to leave guys open underneath consistently? No, but you got to understand that there's no good matchup that you can have here. You're not going to hold Buffalo to 0 points on this game. You have to think of what's the best way to hold them to as few amount of points as possible, and I think this could be a legitimately good strategy. We also saw some stuff like this. So this is going to be a cover 3 zone, and one of the issues of running a single safety deep coverage is obviously Josh Allen has the big arm, so kind of those perimeter plays, he has a chance to make them, these outside the number type plays. Watch how right when this play begins, this is kind of one of those things that I almost feel like for Kansas City, they just weren't ready for someone to have as big of an arm as Josh Allen, which is weird because they played Josh Allen a number of times before, and also they play in practice against Patrick Mahomes. So you think you'd be prepared for something like this. But you see, this isn't like, there's not a ton of separation necessarily. But Allen just gets the ball there in a hurry, and you're going to get a touchdown right there. So, again, you leave these one-on-one matchups on the outside, and the reality is Allen's going to hit some. He just is. Like, some of these plays are going to just work out. And you have to say it's very similar to when you game plan against Patrick Mahomes of, like, we're not going to shut him out. We're not going to shut them down and not allow any of these big plays. A big play or two is going to happen. Realistically, that's probably what's going to happen, and we'll just have to accept that. But like one like this is something that I don't think will consistently happen, but it did kind of cause the game to go in a certain way the last time, where you see Josh Allen's going to just throw it up to Dawson Knox, who somehow comes down with that catch. I mean, that's just a great catch and kind of just a jump ball. And for Buffalo, I think, hey, don't be afraid to do that. You have guys who can make the play, and Josh Allen has a cannon of an arm. Take those opportunities. But for Kansas City, you feel a little bit more okay with them trying that stuff than getting guys just completely wide open. Now I got to talk about something else, because I want to talk about one player in particular, Daniel Sorensen. This game was the last game we saw really significant playing time from Daniel Sorensen. I think we saw another game against the Raiders where he had similar snaps, but for the most part, we saw his snap totals go way down after this game, and for good reason, because he made really 2 crucial mistakes in this game. He only gave up 2 catches on 3 targets, but they were 2 bad catches. Where this one, it's a cover 2 zone, and you have a receiver who's going to kind of make a move, but he's running a deep route. And watch how right when this play begins, you see this little move, and I mean, at this point, Sorensen is just completely biting in on it. This is a good move for sure, but it's also kind of the danger of playing a guy like Josh Allen. Is the reality is, against other guys, you can make this move because you have an opportunity to come back. If it is a deep shot, it usually takes a minute to get there, but Allen has a bigger arm than most other players. So when Diggs runs deep, he gets way past Sorensen, and this is going to be a 61-yard completion right there. So that's just a huge chunk play that completely changes the game and makes things so much easier for Buffalo. And for Kansas City, basically the hope is that, hey, let's not put Sorensen in that spot. Remember when I said that Matthew and Juan Thornhill both had solid games? Let's put those 2 guys back there instead of Sorensen. Like, this one's another one. This one's just kind of inexcusable, I think, where it's going to be man coverage, and you have Daniel Sorensen one-on-one covering Dawson Knox on this play. So that's what's happening. And so watch how right when this play begins, you see that Josh Allen's going to kind of do the classic thing where he just gets outside the pocket. You see that it's actually good coverage by Sorensen. Sorensen did a good job, which is why Allen kind of had to wait a little bit. But something weird is going to happen here, where it feels like Sorensen just said, okay, this play's been going on for a while, I guess it's over. Watch him just stop running, which allows Knox to get wide open, makes the catch, and is going to get into the end zone for a touchdown right there. That's just a boneheaded play by Daniel Sorensen. So I don't want to crush Sorensen too much, but those were 2 huge plays that first time, and without those 2 plays, again, the Bills still win, but it's a lot closer, and the defense does a lot better of a job than they did the first time. Like, one thing worth noting, I think, is that I know Stephon Diggs had some big catches, but, it was really that one 61-yarder on Sorensen. Outside of that, I thought Kansas City did a pretty good job on him. Like, watch what's happening right here, and it was several different corners, too. It wasn't just one corner, although in this play, obviously, it's just one corner. It's a man coverage play, single safety deep, so this is a tough play usually for a corner to play against. Going up against Diggs, this is usually hard. However, it's going to be pretty good coverage right here. You see not a lot of separation, comes back and makes contact on Diggs as he's trying to catch it, and on a 3rd down, they aren't able to convert. And so that's optimistic for me, and this is just one example, but they did do a pretty good job at that stuff. And so looking at this, I kind of wanted to say, okay, how good of a job did they do when they played man, and how good of a job did they do when they played zone? What were the differences? So this chart will tell you, and I got to talk about what exactly you're looking at here, because it's zone, man, and adjusted man. What is adjusted man? So basically what I did was, unfortunately, these stats aren't readily available, so I just had to rewatch the entire game and just chart it myself. But obviously, I think it's pretty simple to say. So just to clarify what the board actually is, this is the yards per play when the defense played zone, when the defense played man, and I also want to be clear, I'm not taking running plays into account unless it was a Josh Allen run. Other than that, I'm not taking it into account. The adjusted man is simply just, that's when they played man coverage, but I'm adjusting and I'm taking out the one Daniel Sorensen boneheaded play. Taking that one out, the yards per play goes all the way down to 6.1. Now, you could argue that that's unfair. Like, it's not really fair to totally take out the one Daniel Sorensen play that was in man without the one Daniel Sorensen play that was in zone. But if you take the one out in zone, there were more zone plays, so it would still be about 8.5 yards per play. So you're talking about about over 2 yards per play difference, which is significant. And to me, that tells me, hey, probably play more man this time, even though you played more zone last time. There's also another interesting factor here that I would throw in. So this is every single time the Chiefs played cover 2 zone. You see a lot of good plays and then a couple of bad plays, specifically 2 bad plays, the 61-yard completion and the 41-yard completion. That's what you're looking at, by the way, just how many yards were given up on each play that the Kansas City Chiefs played cover 2 zone. And you see that with the exception of those 2 plays, they actually had a lot of success. However, those 2 plays went horribly wrong. So what happened on those 2 plays? Well, that was the Daniel Sorensen screw up for the 61-yard completion. And it was also, remember that Dawson Knox play where he wasn't really open, but he just made a jump ball? That was the 41-yarder. So those two plays getting taken out, which were kind of fluky, cover 2 zone worked. And so I would actually play a lot of cover 2 and a lot of man coverage. I would stay away from cover 3 zone. It worked really bad last time. I think that's what I would say. One final point, this one, I just think it's interesting. Listen, I'm not trying to pick on Daniel Sorensen too much, but it's worth talking about because I do think that Daniel Sorensen will have a much lower role than he did the first time these two teams played. And you look at Josh Allen's passer rating versus Kansas City the first time these two teams played. Really just, I wrote passer rating. I meant to just write stats. But you look at his stats, 15 for 26, 315 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions for a passer rating of 139.1. But Josh Allen's stats versus Kansas City when not targeting Daniel Sorensen, they go significantly down. I mean, we're talking over 100-yard difference, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The passer rating goes from 139.1 to 114.6. So it's still very good. The Bills' offense is great, but you see a significant impact. Now, again, it has to be mentioned, someone still has to cover Dawson Knox, who's a big part of this team. And if it's, Tyrann Mathieu or Juan Thornhill instead, that's still not a guarantee that you're not going to give up any yards to him, right? Like, you still do have to do that, and someone still is going to have to cover Stephon Diggs down the field. There still is opportunities to get big plays, but at least these are some signs of optimism for Kansas City, so I don't think it'll go as poorly as it went last time. Look, the first time these two teams played, the Buffalo Bills scored 38 points on 9 possessions, which is 4.2 points per drive. Buffalo scores on average this season 2.63 points per drive on the year, and Kansas City gives up 2.14 points per drive on the year. So my prediction is I think they'll score 2.7 points per drive on 12 drives, which would be 32 points. I do think there'll be a bit of a decent amount of drives in this one. I do think Buffalo will probably score a little bit above average in terms of points per drive on the year, but I think that there are some schematic things you can do, and most specifically, you can stay away from that cover 3 zone, and you can give Daniel Sorensen less playing time. Those two shifts, I think, should help out a lot, and part of it, too, was Buffalo was just so red hot the first time these two teams played. Throwing down the field, it worked. Granted, they're coming off of a game where they literally scored a touchdown on every drive, so they're red hot right now as well. But how much does momentum really carry over week to week? I don't know. The final thing I'll say is predicting these two teams is really difficult because I think we've seen such huge disparities with these two teams in terms of their offense when it's on and having a great day, and their offense when it's not having a great day. I mean, we've seen the Bills lose to the Jaguars and also score a touchdown on every drive against New England. So they've had a ton of variance this season, but I do think that around 2.7 points per drive feels about right. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? I should also mention, you might be wondering, wait a second, okay, 32 points, will that be enough to beat Kansas City? Well, if you want to watch that, you'll have to watch my other video where I preview and, the other side of the ball, break all of that down, say who I think is going to win. So the second part of this video, because yes, this is a two-parter, will be when I make my final predictions. Or if you're not interested in that stuff, you can just click it and skip to the end where I give my final predictions. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts of all of this in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.